Yay!
Everybody,
Live.
welcome.
OOC.
I'm back. That's the important part. Just kidding.
Yeah, Tanya's back. Tanya. Last time we had
Tanya's alive, and we
Tanya
care
got
about
a shot last
I
time.
got my first.
My mom got her
ring.
first shot today at 11. My
What?
mom got her first shot today at 11. So
I got my first shot a week ago, and my
I got mine yesterday.
I had a mild allergic reaction to the shot. That's really uncommon, everybody. Don't think that it's gonna happen to you. Just weird.
Tanya's
and also, like I would rather you have an allergic reaction that you have to take a break from doing this stuff from the vaccine than from you getting the virus.
Yeah.
Like a mild allergic reaction is still better than getting COVID.
100%. Yeah.
So speaking of COVID and vaccines and vaccinations, hopefully by 2022, people will be vaccinated so we can go to in-person conventions again. Story time for these three people who are on the OOC with me. I got an email from someone at FlameCon that I haven't told you guys this. I had inquired about hosting doing a panel, and I got an email from her Tuesday. They say, thank you so much for reaching out to us. Your show sounds delightful, and we would love to have you submit an application for our panel just as soon as we get those opened and posted to the website. This is for FlameCon. And she was like, we're a little delayed because of COVID, but we will let you know as soon as it's open. So FlameCon is a GLBTQ geek convention in New York. So first thing we're going to talk about is, is this my mom? No, it's not my mom. It's a random number. I'm not if it's my mom, my realtor, I answer. If it's like any other number, I'm like, fuck you. So conventions have switched from being in person in convention centers and hotels and stuff like that to being online. And that's what FlameCon is doing. They did last year and they're doing this year. Otherwise, if it wasn't online, we couldn't participate because we're in Texas and FlameCon is in New York. But since all of their panels are going to be online this year, why not have a bunch of people?
Why not?
Oh, also, I want to just do PSA. If you do an online convention, if you do a not online convention, so if you do one in person, you're trash right now. Just saying. Yeah. Your convention is bullshit and you're hurting people. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Anime Month is trash.
Are they doing an in-person convention this year?
I don't keep up with them.
Anime Matsuri.
But they are trash in general.
In general. I went to that convention once and we made hella cash when we vended, but then we found out everything that happened. And it was the year before the boycott. Like, so the year before, like, everything was super intense. Like, that was the year that we went.
So guess what, everybody? The topic today is
Conventions are trash. I'm kidding. Not all of them.
No. I have an outline. Okay. It's me.
I just wanted to bring out the PSA about in-person conventions because there have been 2 in Texas that have been in person, and people with COVID have gone. So I just wanted to point that out.
I was bummed because ChupacabraCon, which was going to be the first con that Sarah Courtney and I had our collaborative table at, was right there at the beginning of everything getting canceled. And then they're coming back virtually this year, but Sherwood's now a month later, so I can't do it. So I'm just like, I will never do ChupacabraCon at this rate.
At some point it will happen. So one thing I wanted to talk about is, so in my outline, we have first convention experiences.
Okay.
Stop skipping ahead.
You should have sent us the outline.
Yeah. Well, I wrote it about 5 minutes ago. So
okay. Still.
So, and by wrote it, I mean I brought it up in my head. Okay, so first convention experiences. Who wants to go first? What was your first convention? What was it like? Anybody go for it?
Go, because like I've only had one convention experience, and that's HavenCon, and that's where I met Sarah. It was so the way I ended up going was that a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I ended up with free tickets to HavenCon, but I can't go. Does anyone want them?" And I was like, "I guess sure. Like I don't know what the hell I'm doing." So on a whim, I took these free tickets to HavenCon. got in my We're waiting.
Oops.
Okay, are we still live? All good.
Go on.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Go on. HavenCon.
And so on a whim, I took this weekend pass to HavenCon, got in my car, didn't have a hotel room, nothing. I was like, I'll go check it out, see what the hubbub is about, like about cons, because my friends all love cons. So, I mean, and this one's queer oriented, and so I'll be safe there. And I was just planning on either like sleeping in my car or headed back to San Antonio that night, you know. And I ended up meeting a couple of really rad people, including Sarah, and I ended up crashing at one of their places overnight.
That's one of the people I hung out with last night.
Yeah.
Was I hung out with Lorelai and her girlfriend Sam.
Yeah. So I was hanging out with Lorelai and crashed at her place, and it was a really cool experience for me because, and I really think I might be spoiled on cons because it was so queer centric. And I was able to feel safe, and I don't cosplay. I'm not good with my hands at crafting things. So like cosplay seems unavailable to me. But like I picked out some like just cute outfits that reflect my personality. And like I did like my makeup in the bathroom there, and like people were like really like they were like, "Oh my gosh, you look like a pinup model," and da 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 da. And I was like, "Okay, this is really cool," and like people are really nice and supportive, and Denise Crosby was there. Huh?
After a panel that we met, because I was there, because it was me and Lorelai and our friend Morgan.
No, Lorelai introduced us. You were like coming over to hang out with Lorelai, and I met Danielle. I met Danielle there too.
Okay.
I met Danielle after a panel.
Okay. So yeah, because
I want to ask Annika if they even remember their first con, because
I was gonna say I'll be the last one to talk because I will have a lengthy talk about my first like cons.
I'm a long time here. Because we met Annika, we met Amelie with my friend Lorelai, and so Amelie just like we're like, "You play board games?" And I was like, "Okay," and we just like ended up talking about our Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and like stuff like that, and we were like,
at lunch.
Yeah, we got lunch. It was just kind of like it was like me and my friends Lorelai and Morgan were like, "We're adopting you. You're ours now." That's literally what happened.
Yeah, so, and that's how I that's how I ended up with friends outside of when I didn't live in Houston. Was I got adopted by a bunch of queers. So,
yep,
because that's how life go.
Yep. Annika, do you want to go now? Because you seem keyed up and ready to talk.
It'll. So I don't remember the first convention I ever went to, because I've been doing conventions since I was 8 years old. I am 21 now, just for everybody to know. The only reason I did conventions was because my mom was a part of the Austin Browncoats, which Tanya was a part of too, eventually. Group's not fun anymore. Don't try and find that group. They're not cool people anymore.
Find us.
We're cooler than them now. So yeah, I've been doing that. And I didn't start cosplaying till I was like 12 at conventions. And then I did
photo evidence.
My first cosplay I think I ever did at a convention was number 3 from Codename Kids Next Door. And it was total closet cosplay. I attached a rainbow to my monkey stuffed animal that I had. That was just like a normal thing to make a fake rainbow monkey. It was great. Yeah.
What was your first con?
So my very first cons were Star Trek conventions, which is what they had in the 80s.
It wasn't just like a big like conglomerate. You were individual conventions for individual fandoms.
Right. There was not yet the like idea of like overarching like Comic-Palooza or Dragon Con kind of stuff yet. So it was whatever your fandom was, you went to that convention. And my family went to Star Trek conventions because Star Wars conventions weren't a thing, but I love both of them. I love them both equally for different reasons. But here's a fun fact. Back then, you could get Star Wars like toys and signed posters and all sorts of stuff super cheap at a Star Trek convention. So if you have a time machine and want to go back and get a good deal on some geekery, there you go. That's your hot tip. So yeah, that's what I started as, and I started like in, I guess, grade school. Mostly went in like middle school, and then in high school I was actually like driving my sister and I to some, and it was always when they came to Houston. So I got to meet just about everybody from Next Generation and a couple of original Star Trek. Any rate, and then I didn't do conventions. The conventions as we know them became a thing. But I had a young kid, and my life was on just a different trajectory. I was on a mama trajectory. But my sister was going to like Dragon Con and stuff, and really getting into it. And it really was not until like maybe 5 years ago, maybe, that I actually was like, okay, I'm going to conventions.
When you had a teenager, basically?
Huh? When Kaden was a teenager. And it was a thing that we did because like me and Kaden, like we geek together. It's kind of been our thing since he was really little. And so I thought like this would be a thing that we liked. And so I think the first one we went to was Comic-Palooza, I think. And we went to help Annika's mom at their booth. I think that was the first one we went to. I don't entirely remember.
I will say I'm pretty sure that the first convention I ever went to was a Dallas convention, because that was all we did at the time. I hate Dallas so much. I'm pretty sure it's because of us having to do the 4-hour drive to go to conventions and stuff up there is why I hate it so much. It's not a fun place. I don't like going there.
As a born Houstonian, as a person, I had to sign a contract that said I will always say I hate Dallas.
Dude, honestly, I think the only time I would ever go to Dallas is if Matt Mercer's at A-Con. That would be the only reason.
People I love in Dallas. I have people that I love in Dallas.
Hi, Donna.
And I hate Dallas.
I mean, again, the only reason I think I would ever go up to Dallas again would be for the possibility to meet Matt Mercer up there, because I know he does A-Con occasionally. So
yeah, he does he used to do it every year before he got really, really busy.
Yeah.
So my first convention, if we want to call it that, this is the convoluted story. I'm from a small town in East Texas, so we don't have conventions. Conventions didn't come to. I think they tried to do one a few years ago, but it like fell apart. But we're talking, this is like the late 80s, early 90s. Gun shows, definitely had gun shows, had county fairs. Boat, if you want to go buy an RV, yeah, they've got those shows. Camping gear. No comic book nerd conventions coming to East Texas. But my dad played men's industrial league softball. And we would always drive down to Houston. Also, my dad's favorite baseball team, even though he's from Texas, his favorite baseball team was the Los Angeles Dodgers. So anytime basically the Dodgers were playing the Astros, we drove down to Houston to watch. And this was in the Astrodome, by the way. This was the Astrodome. And so I think we were on it was one of the things where because my brothers were there, because we also had to go down to Houston a lot because I was sick. I was in Texas Children's. So, but my brothers were there. So that means it was one of the family vacations. So my dad either had a softball tournament or we were going to watch multiple baseball games at the Astrodome. But something happening nearby it wasn't a comic book convention. It was a collectible card convention. It was a baseball card show. Another side note, this was in 93 or 94, so it was like 9 or 10. Magic the Gathering had just started. So the people who were selling, it was like, I mean, obviously they had other memorabilia as well, but it's like, it was like baseball cards and other related memorabilia. So there was one booth that was like a card shop that was selling Magic the Gathering cards. And my brothers and I had just started playing Magic the Gathering. And for those of you who don't know, there used to be a Highlander collectible card game. If you didn't know that, you do now. Well, my brother and I, and there was a Star Wars collectible, it was a Star Trek collectible card game, like back in the early 90s. It was like the collectible card games kind of started. So there was one booth that was selling like nerdy collectible card games. So my dad and one of my brothers were looking at like baseball cards. And then the same brother and then another brother and I were like, my mom's like, whatever, I don't care. Looking at Magic the Gathering cards. And so that was like my first big like convention thing that I was actually interested in. Because, spoiler alert, I also did go to gun shows with my dad because my dad hunted. So there's that. So that was my first like foray into anything sort of geeky, was buying Magic the Gathering cards at this baseball card convention.
I do want to say that there is a weird thing though with the gun shows. That you could go, like, I got a Scooby-Doo, like a metal Scooby-Doo lunchbox at a gun show.
I collect metal lunchboxes. Sorry.
But
this is how the Sanctuary Coaster happens.
Gun shows are weird because there will be like back off in the corner, like somebody selling something seemingly random. I used to get like Russian nesting dolls. Never bought guns. Would just go right past everything at the front, right to everybody at the back, because they were the ones like selling stuff I wanted.
Yeah, because like crafters and stuff, just they need space to sell their stuff, and so if there's going to be some sort of convention where that culture is going to be there, like, hey, this is a culture that likely enjoys tchotchkes and stuff. Like, there was a lot of spouses who didn't necessarily care about guns, but would go along because their spouse was there for the guns and they want to go find something interesting. So yeah.
My first real comic book convention, was a local convention here in Austin called Staple Independent Media Expo. It started in 2005, and Staple.
I know. I'm like, so SIME, Sime?
No, it's just called Staple. They don't abbreviate it. They just call it Staple.
Oh, got it.
The mascot is a stapler, and that they've turned that stapler into a T-Rex head. So it's a T-Rex head, and then there's like it's staple. Anyway,
sorry, I just heard like it's a stapler, and then I thought of Clippy.
No, it's not a paper. It's a stapler. Anyway, and it was right out of so it started in like 2005, and I think I went to the second or third one. Anyway, I was there like right out of college, and basically one or two rooms, and it is an independent media expo. And it was basically mostly at this point, still is, people who do zines, web comics, independent comic books, authors, and then of course artists and stuff like that. Like people do fan art or just any kind of art. I've got a cool belt buckle there. But that was the first one that I went to that was like dedicated nerdy crap, like this is, and I was like, it wasn't a queer convention, but one of the very first people that I met there created a comic called Politically Inqueer. And they are a trans masked person. So, and this was like 2006, 2007. And so I just so happened that was one of the first booths that I went to. Not a queer con, but I was like, oh God, this is great. And so that was the first convention, and I've gone back. I love Staple. And it's gotten bigger. Obviously, the last 2 years they haven't had it. Well, they had it in 2019. They didn't have it in 2020. But I will say a lot of the local artists that were at HavenCon, because HavenCon's also here in Austin, were at Staple. So I went to HavenCon, and like a few months later, I would go to Staple. I'm like, hey, let's go. And like the same Staple again, not a queer con, but so much queer content, because a lot of the local comic book artists and fan artists and stuff in and around the Austin area are queer people. And so it's just like, well, we're the artists, so we're going to show up. And I got a lot of really great independent comic books and like stuff like that. So that's Staple is actually one of my favorites. So that's my convention. First, next thing was going to actually, Amelie talked about it and Annika talked about it. Has anybody ever, I mean, I know Annika cosplays and I cosplay and Tanya cosplays. He does a lot of closet cosplay.
Yeah, I do closet cosplay.
Real fast, I just want to preface that if I make weird faces during this, it is because the construction guys are back and they are doing stuff and I don't like the noise. I just want to let you guys know.
Yeah, I'm kind of I don't feel as crafty, and I also I just get overwhelmed with big projects easily and stuff. So like as much as I want to do like super elaborate cosplays, I don't. So I do closet cosplay, and usually
can you define that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so closet cosplay is a little bit like if you're familiar with like Disney bounding, it's a little like this. Is that you're basically taking items that are would normally be in your closet that might just be found in a normal closet, and you're putting them together in a way that is evocative of a character.
I was gonna say an example for that. Like one example I could think of is like people wanting to cosplay like Sam or Dean from Supernatural, wear a plaid shirt and jeans, and then like make your hair kind of look like either of them. And you could say, "Oh, I'm cosplaying Sam or Dean." Like that's basically closet cosplay.
So the one that I wear a lot. So I have but the two that I wear most often are I have Boba Fett, where I have a gray skirt, a red belt that has a sort of like Kraken looking sort of belt like on it, and then my top is a gray see-through with a green shirt underneath it, and then I actually have I have a necklace that has the Mandalorian crest, and I have a bracelet too, and I have a Boba Fett purse. So it's and little gray boots. Little gray boots. So it's evocative because it's the same colors and kind of the same way. And then the other one I do is I have bright orange shorts with a white top, an orange belt that actually has the rebel insignia on it, and a X-wing pilot backpack that I wear. So I go as an X-wing pilot, but it's all closet cosplay.
So yeah, you can see behind Annika some of Annika's wigs.
My wig shelf. That's my Among Us helmet that I got made for Halloween. When everybody was buying those helmets, they were all sold out at every Spirit Halloween store because everybody was like, Among Us! And then I got Yasha. It would have been
way funnier had we actually had an in-person
I know, and everybody was just wearing the same thing. Yasha, Jester, that's my Sherwood character. And then I got Taco and Lin Beifong from Avatar. That's all of my wigs.
Wizard Taco.
You can't see my wigs because they're in a different room.
Now you can see. That's my Taco hat. I love that hat. I'll link the person who made this hat because she's great. And I have a bunch of her hats. I have like 3 and then my mom has 1 as well.
But and like it goes to the like if you want to go like all out, right? And because there are people who do like the foam armor and like it looks super realistic and everything, but you could like one of the things like Annika will do is like it's Taco, but it's Taco from like the beach episode. So
yeah, I did 11th Hour Taco, which was fun.
It's sort of what I've done. I have cosplayed She-Hulk, and I've cosplayed She-Hulk multiple times. And there was one that I did straight up. I did the cover of She-Hulk #1 from 2014. Kevin Wada. I created the skirt and the dress and the shirt, and I ripped my tights and I painted my body green, and I got my green wig and like full out. Like I was also meeting Kevin Wada and picking up my art from him. So I was like, "There's no way in hell I'm not dressing like her." And he was like, "Oh!" It was very exciting. So, but I've also cosplayed Jennifer Walters after that. But all I've done is been like Jennifer Walters on her day off. And so I'm wearing like leggings and Converse. And so I've got like, all I have to do is like do my face and like neck and I put the wig on and pulled the wig up into a ponytail, and I'm just like, hey, I got a messenger bag, and I'm just like, so I don't have to do full body. I've cosplayed Lady Kima from Critical Role, and instead of doing like Tanya was talking about full foam armor, because I'm like, first of all, I have to make the armor. Second of all, I have to wear the armor, and we live in Texas. And I'm like, So
sorry about that.
Yeah, I got a blonde wig, and I made Lady Kima the team captain of the Bahamut Bombers of the Iman Temple League softball team, because she's a big lesbian. Well, she's not a big lesbian. She's a short lesbian. She's a halfling. But she's a lesbian. So I'm like, there is nothing more queer woman butch than playing on a friggin' softball team. And so I made a tank top.
I remember this cosplay. Yeah. I just realized I've seen you in this cosplay, and no one recognized you.
No, but a few people actually did. Nobody recognized me when I was around you guys. But I put on the back Lady Kima Visorin, because that's her wife's last name is Visorin.
Oh, well, no, I meant that we didn't recognize that you were you. That's what I meant.
Didn't even recognize me after. I was like, dude, I'm not taking my wig off, because I had to put the wig back on.
We were just like, who is this person talking to us? And then you were like, it's Sarah. We were like, oh my god.
The main thing was I had blonde hair, and when I have my blonde wig on, people are like if I have my green wig on, I'm like, okay, Sarah, it's dark green. I have my black wig on, they're like, okay, but I have my blonde wig on, and people are like, so anyway, so that was my like, and I'm like, so I try to do things where I'm like, I do like comfortable cosplay a lot. Like I'm working on a Wild Mother cosplay, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to make a cyclist. That's what I'm going to wear. It's just going to be a sack with sleeves with another slack with sleeves on it. Because it's the Wild Mother.
The one cosplay I did, and granted, it was also a closet cosplay, but you can closet cosplay this pretty easily. I did Desire from Sandman. Nobody knew who that was. People catch up.
Yeah.
It's been a hot minute since that came out. Yeah, it is hard because like I think it's gonna people are gonna know it now. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, look, I was years ahead of the curve. Also very hard for me to bind my chest. I cannot look like it's very hard for me to look androgynous in the chest area.
So my story of cosplaying in Texas in the summer. So I said I don't cosplay. I didn't say that I haven't cosplayed. And so I used to do Gishwas every year, which I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. It's the greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen. It's now just shortened to Gish. But Misha runs it. And so I used to do, I had like a half a team here in when I was living in San Antonio. I had half a team in San Antonio, and so we would just be like, yeah, we're all going to be together and get put with someone else across the world, and that'll be exciting. And so one year, one of the challenges was to go door-to-door caroling with the supernatural parody of Shake It Off. And we had to all be cosplayed as characters from Supernatural. So I was like, I'm claiming Dean. Like that's just, I have the stuff. It was a closet cosplay, and I used some lip liner to draw the mark of Cain. And I was like, all right, let's get some people together. We need some trench coats. We need some plaid. Let's go. But please note, it was August in Texas. We were going door to door, so that means that we were walking outside in August in Texas in in trench coats and flannel and boots. Yeah, we were a little warm.
As someone who has also done the Supernatural cosplays in August, I feel.
Yeah. Supernatural cosplays are for winter if you're going to be doing them in Texas.
So this is going to go...
ironically.
I cosplayed a character in which I had to flatten down one of my breasts. Not both. So I couldn't fully bind. I had to I had to make a bra, got one, cut out one cup, and put the binding material only over, I had to hand sew a lot of elastic down over that one because I cosplayed Hero from Y the Last Man. And she's one of the Amazons, and they cut off their right breast. So I only had to...
Not historically.
Not historically, but from Y the Last Man. So the reason I bring out also cosplay is, for those of you who have cosplayed at conventions or even done cosplay, like, how was your experience? Because if I've done both, I've gone to conventions in cosplay and I've gone to conventions and just like nerdy stuff. How is your experience different when you're in cosplay versus when you're just kind of like walking around wearing a nerdy t-shirt, you know, or like a nerdy dress like I do?
I only cosplay. I only cosplay at conventions.
So you definitely more pictures get taken of you.
Yeah, but also depending on what you cosplay, you get the little kids, and not the little kids. Now you get the teenage weebs. I remember once when I cosplayed Aizawa from My Hero Academia, I specifically only did the sleeping bag version. So I had my giant yellow sleeping bag and I was like in it walking around, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I was like walking to the bathroom and these kids were like, "Hey, can we get a picture of you?" And I was like, "Yes," real fast, take the picture. And then they were like, "Can you lay on the ground?" And I'm like, "I have to pee." No. And they were like, "Okay, well, we'll just wait." And I was like, "No, you take the picture now and I go pee." Like, you little kids.
Fair, it's like this is Sherwood too. You're like, if you're on cast, people want to take pictures, you will be in line to go to the bathroom.
These kids are like 12 when this happened, and I was like, "Kids, I get that you like My Hero Academia. I do too, but I'm Aizawa right now and I need to pee."
So because I closet cosplay, people don't often even notice that I'm like not just like dressed up. So the one time that I ever did have like people want to get pictures was the X-Wing pilot closet cosplay. When I just wear geeky shirts, it's different. It's more like your gang affiliation. People see you like across the room, right? And they're like, "Hey, like you know, because you have found somebody else in your fandom sphere, and you might not like go up and ask people about it, but you like totally make the eye contact and are like, "Yeah, like your shirt." I also wear obscure references on shirts. Like today, Annika's also wearing an obscure shirt.
It's not that obscure. It's Overwatch.
I said obscure in a real joke. That was my like sarcastic.
I will say that I did have some best convention moments have happened while I've been in cosplay. One of them was while I was wearing She-Hulk, and there was a storm, and so people were like, "Can you go take a picture together?" I'm like, "Oh my god, you're so great!" Like I was just because I personally was like, "Oh my god, your storm is amazing," because it was Mohawk Storm, and I was like. Anyway, but one of the best experiences, there was 3 younger femme people. I think they all considered themselves, they said she, her. So, and so 3 younger girls, maybe 8 to 12 years old, all told. And they came up to me and they're like, "Can we get a picture with you? Can you picture with you?" And I was like, yeah, of course. And they're like, they were like, "Oh, this is so cool. Like, we'd never seen like a woman, like, because I'm like She-Hulk. So I'm like, you know, I'm like punching and all stuff like all the, even in wearing her courtroom like black suit, I'm still like all my poses are all like wrapping, you know, and like they were really, really excited about taking a picture with like a strong female from like comic books and all that stuff. And so talking to them was amazing, but also their moms, like I think there was like 2 women with them, was like some sort of maternal figures that were there with them at the convention, were like, "Thank you." They were like, "Thank you so much." They were like, they were so worried about coming to this because they were younger and female. And they were like, this was a Wizard World convention. It's Wizard World Austin. They were so worried about coming here because they didn't think that they would find anybody. They didn't think they would see anybody like them here. They thought like they were the only ones. Like you, especially as a like younger, like femme person who's into nerdy shit, you think you're the only one, you know? Because you don't often see in media and stuff like that, you don't see other femme like nerdy people doing things. And they were like, "Thank you so much for just showing up, being here, being this character, and like because they liked comic books, and of course they went into MCU, and like they, I think they like anime, which is not my thing, but it doesn't matter, because they were just really excited to see a female person playing a female character that was like, doing all that, and I was like, I had to fight back tears, like honestly, because I was like, you're welcome. I was like super teared up about it, and then cosplaying Peggy Carter at the very first Haven Con. Oh my god, I got stopped every 5 feet because everybody was like, oh my god, it's Peggy Carter, oh my god, it's Peggy Carter. And it was one of those things where it was a pulled together cosplay really quickly, and everybody was just like really excited about it because it was also the first Haven Con. But I was in it was in a panel, and I was raising my hands because they were talking about doing audience participation. And somebody pointed at me and they were like, Peggy Carter. Of course, they didn't know my name, but they were like, Peggy Carter, we know you have opinions. Let's go. And I was like, because it was about bi visibility. I think it was about bi visibility in comic books or something like that. And I was like, well, here we go. But like, I think, and then I've gone just as like, as a normal person as Sarah, where I've presented in panels and stuff like that, where you just kind of like Tanya says, like, depending on what shirt you're wearing, if it's like a fan shirt or it's like a bigger shirt, you're like, I see you're wearing a, Nightcrawler shirt, because I love Nightcrawler, and people are like, Nightcrawler, you're wearing a Star Wars shirt or a Star Trek or a Scooby-Doo or whatever it is, especially when you go to these big conventions where there's so many different fandoms in one place. You kind of spot, not just by cosplays, but like by the merch that people are wearing. You're like, you're wearing a D&D shirt, we should talk. Like, that's how you find people. The question I was going to ask next, I'll re-ask it when Tanya comes back. Oh, here she comes. Why do you go to conventions? Do you go to conventions to meet people? Do you go to conventions to show off your cosplays? Do you go to conventions to buy things, to do panels? What is your main impetus for going to conventions?
So that's interesting. So for me, it's a chance to get to hang out with my kid. And even though like over the years, what we geek out about is like diverges, right? It's a space where there's going to be something for each of us. There's going to be a panel he's going to enjoy, a panel I'm going to enjoy. There's going to be plenty of booze with like fandom goodies, and it's going to be something that we enjoy. We after our first couple, we definitely did set a budget. We have we have budgets now when we go, because this is a dangerous place. And we actually have a whole battle plan. We talk about our battle plan is that when we hit the cellar floor, we start on one end and we go down every single aisle and do not buy anything. If at the end of it, there's things that we remember,
you do it first pass through and then you go back.
Right. We do a first pass through. And I can tell you, friends of ours have encountered us like mid first pass through. Right. And we're like, we're on the mission. We're like on first pass through. And our friends have learned that because we walk by. Now we've made exceptions. So like, there was the year that Timothy Zahn was at Comic Palooza, like almost under the radar. He was on a random ass row. And he was like between a booth that was like selling stickers and like a booth that was just like, it wasn't even art. I can't even remember like what it was. And then there's Timothy Zahn, like in this tiny little like 10 by 10 booth.
Can you tell people who Timothy Zahn is if they don't know?
Why do you not know?
I didn't say I didn't know.
Yeah, so not everybody is a huge Star Wars fan. That's fine.
Because we don't gatekeep.
Yeah, he is. If you were a big Star Wars fan, like back in the 90s, like it is a kind of impossible not to know him. But he is one of the people who has written a lot of Star Wars novels, and in particular, he wrote the Thrawn trilogy, which until the new movies came out, were considered the final trilogy in the Star Wars universe. Now, he's written many other things. He's very much known for creating the character of Thrawn, who is my favorite villain, because he's real evil, but like not obviously evil. He's like real world evil. Any rate, so I love Timothy Zahn and I love his work. And there he was, he wasn't over where like people were doing autographs. He wasn't with like the other authors. He was just randomly somewhere. And I was like, oh no, we're stopping and we're getting everything signed like right now. So there can be exceptions. There was also the one of the Caden, you got to throw me your square pillow. Caden and I went to, Annika knows the story of the square pillow. I want to say we first encountered it at one of the smaller cons. And we just saw it like sitting there and we were like, oh, it's so cute. First pass. We'll probably come back for it. But at the end of the day, it was not a thing that we bought. Right. And then we ended up at a second con and same booth, same pillow. And we were like, we'll probably get it this time. But ended up not getting it.
Wait,
and then it showed up
like,
at Comic Palooza.
Can you move
and
it like
we bought
more?
It on the first pass because we were like, come on.
Tanya, can you move it like
your face?
Yeah, because there you go. Because for Twitch they can't see it because everybody's a square.
This is a square.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes we make exceptions for the first pass. Okay.
Yeah. Why did you prefer to go to that one convention that you went to?
Because impulsivity. But like when I do see cons that I'm like, oh, I wish I had room in my budget for this. That's the biggest reason I don't go to cons, is that like I don't make a lot of money, and so I have a very, very strict budget, and there's not a whole ton of room in there for like big events. Like I can do like one big event a year, and usually it's a fair, like a Renaissance festival or something. So that's generally why I don't get to attend a lot of cons. But when I see like the advertisements and stuff, the things that like get me excited to like be like, oh, maybe I should budget for that this year and like check to see like what I have, are celebrity meetings. Like I really like celebrity meet and greets. Those are really cool. I'm really bad about them because like I know that they're people and that they react as people and they're humans, and also like so cool.
But also I want to lick them. It's weird. When I was young, I really did. Like when I was going to like the Star Trek conventions, I loved getting to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't. I don't know what it is.
It's shifted. I totally understand where you're coming from, Amelie. Like it's so cool.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you make the thing that I love, and it's one of those things where you're just like, hi, you get all like flustered, and you're like, it's that.
To be fair, yeah, I had a whole like moment when Travis McElroy wished me happy birthday on Nuked. So I'm not going to say I'm above it.
At Comic Palooza, the year that they had Daenerys and Missandei at from Game of Thrones, when they had the two Game of Thrones people, I went because I could not afford to get Daenerys, so I went to get Missandei's autograph because I have a Game of Thrones poster that's signed by a few of the actors and stuff. And at the time, all of the actors were like, all of the characters were dead. So I was like, I can only get characters that were dead on the map. And at the time, Missandei had died. So I was like, oh, I'm going to get her because Daenerys was dead at the time. Spoiler alert. It's been out for like 3 years now, guys.
Also, it save yourself. If you haven't seen the last season, just save yourself and don't.
And so I was dressed up as Taco. And I went up with my Game of Thrones poster, and she was so nice. It was so funny because she's like, so what are you dressed as? And I was like, oh, I'm Taco from a podcast called The Adventure Zone. And she's like, what's it about? And I was like,
TV.
It's about Dungeons and Dragons. And she was like, oh, maybe I'll look into it. And I was like, oh my God. Whoa. And then she said I was pretty. I was Taco from TV, so I had like my taco apron on and everything.
The official apron of Tabletop Tees.
Yeah, I had that.
So I the reason Annika is, do you have other reasons why you go? Obviously you cosplay. Anything else?
Oh, for Texas conventions we sell stuff. My mom and I, we vend. That's what we do.
Oh, yeah,
and then the only convention that is the only two conventions that are my fun conventions are KatsuCon. I want to go every year now, and I will, and RTX, because RTX in Austin. And
RTX is the one con that I do not do with Caden.
Oh yeah, he came with us. That was fun.
I go. Yeah, he gets dropped off with Lars and Annika, but I don't do RTX.
Well, and then for those two, I cosplay, and those two are just. Well, KatsuCon is really just me hanging out with my East Coast friends and meeting new Adventure Zone and Critical Role people, and to show off any of my really great cosplays that I work on. And then RTX is to do minor Rooster Teeth cosplays and then try and meet as many Rooster Teeth people as I can. And get
I'm very social.
Get them to sign my plaques, because I make RTX plaques and I get them to sign my wooden plaques.
Annika, next time we go to RTX, find me, because I'll get you people. Okay.
Don't say that!
I don't not go to RTX because I don't like Rooster Teeth stuff. It started off as a thing where it was like my kid getting to do something without me, and it's just continued that way. But yeah, I'm definitely very social. Like I know a bunch of people who vend, and I visit them. I will end up talking to vendors I don't know just because they've got cool stuff about, they've got cool art, or, they've made really awesome
something
some things that relate to things that I love. And I think there's a lot of like geeking out. You know, what's your favorite this? What'd you think when this happened? You know, what do you think is going to happen next? And so for me, there's a lot of social. I don't do games. Like, I know, like, there's the game room, right? And you could go do like one-offs and things like that. But I don't, because I think I have like limited energy.
I've got a funny story about the game room. I'll let you finish, and then I'll tell my funny story.
Okay. So Kristen and I will get there before doors open. So we're usually there in the first wave, and then we're done around 3 or 4 for most cons, and we might go back the next day if I'm helping somebody vend or I'm vending. Yeah, but there's only so much energy, and for some reason I'm like, I don't want to go spend 6 hours gaming with people I don't know when I could be shopping and talking.
So back when Lars was younger, we went to Space City Con, and Lars left. And Lars went to the game room, and we had forgotten about him. And we went to go eat dinner with our friends. And there was just a huge miscommunication between my mom and dad, because my dad thought my mom had Lars, and my mom thought my dad had Lars. And we pull up to eat shawarma, and my mom is like, "Where's Lars?" And my dad was like, "Where's Lars?" And they're like trying to think it, and they're like, "Kids at the game room at the convention still." Because game rooms are 24 hours. So it never closed. So my dad freaking quickly drove back to go get Lars. Lars never even knew that we left him. He was just chilling, playing Halo. And my dad was like, "Lars, we gotta go." And then, like, I think we hadn't told him until like a week later that we left him there. Like, he didn't know for like a whole week. And then my dad finally like just told him, like, "Hey, remember that whole thing? Yeah, we left you."
Caden and I accidentally wandered into a room where there was a live Overwatch competition going on. We were like, there's like loud noises coming from over there. What's happening? And we walked in, and it's just a wall of people.
That's me at RTX.
It took us forever to figure it out.
That was me at RTX because they had the Houston Overwatch team, and I didn't even realize it was the Houston Overwatch team. And then I saw a huge crowd, and I was like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Oh, Alfredo's playing Overwatch with the Houston Outlaws." And I was like, "Alfredo!" And I'm like trying to watch, and I'm like, "This is not worth it."
I do not.
It was very crowded to watch it, and we were like,
plays video games. I do not understand this. I do not understand professional video games.
I don't either, like, really.
I don't get it. I don't. It's just, I have a mental block. Block in my brain for professional video game teams. I don't understand. I don't get it. Okay.
The only time. Oh, yeah, you go. I was like, the only thing I get is Siege, because I mean, I used to play Siege all the time, but like Overwatch, I don't understand.
If you see people who are very good at something that you play, right? They're very, very good. And they're being competitive, and it gets very, it gets.
Yeah, and that's something because I don't play first-person shooters.
No, but shit like Minecraft, I don't understand how those are. Like, that can be tournaments now too. I'm like, what the heck?
When I was young, there was competitive Pac-Man.
Yeah.
So like, it's been around since video games have been around.
Anyway, but the reason I go to conventions is multiple. I am a panel girl. I love panels. I love going to panels. I love being on panels. I love teaching things. I love giving my opinions, as can be evidenced by any time you've ever interacted with me. So when things went virtual, people were like, do you want to, I'm like, I'm going to continue hosting panels, but do it virtually. I've hosted a few panels where I've moderated diversity in gaming panels. And that's what I was talking about doing FlameCon. But so if a con does not have their panel list up, I will not go. If they do not tell me ahead of time what their panels are, who is on those panels and what they're about, I will not attend said con. Unless there is a vendor that I absolutely love. Because that's the other thing that I do, which is shop. I go by, you guys can't see the art in my apartment, but you see some of the stickers. That's from a con, that's from a con, that's from a con.
Well, we can, but Twitch cannot because we're a square. You're a square.
Most of the stickers are from cons. But almost all of my art that is in my apartment is from conventions or Renaissance fairs. Because I love talking to the artists, the people that made the art, and I can buy it directly from them, and I can give them my money. I can
almost all my art is from
I'm like, they're like, art prints, 3 for $20. I'm like, here you go, buddy. Give me that art. Give me that art. Because I can't draw. So I'm like, give me the art.
I buy art all the time. And I used to have art everywhere until I started working in a movie theater. And now I have movie posters all over my room because they're big and I need space to put them up.
So I go, and then of course, like Tanya, like to be social and like hang out with people and stuff like that. But as somebody who has lots of opinions, Peggy Carter's got opinions. I have very much switched from being someone who likes to go to panels to pretty much, if I am not on a panel at a convention, not say I won't go to that convention, but I try very, very hard to promote my panels, which my panels are generally inclusivity and tabletop gaming. Like that's my one panel that I pitch to every convention. I generally only really go to, unless they're virtual because of COVID, go to conventions here in Austin because like Amelie, like budget, I don't have really, I can buy a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day pass, but I don't have the budget for the travel and, all that stuff. So if I can spend $25 for a 1 day ticket, go to the convention, buy art, and then, head back home or whatever it is. And a lot of times local conventions are cheaper. Like Greater Austin Comic Con isn't extraordinarily expensive to do and stuff. So, and it's only like 30 minutes away. And so the travel, I'm not getting a hotel room or any of that stuff. So I only really go to like local conventions in around Austin. I've been to a few in Houston. My brother used to live there because I could just stay with him. I didn't have to get a hotel room. I could just stay with my brother. But it feels like one of those weird things where it's like, I don't want to be like prissy about it and really pretentious, but I'm like, if they don't want my panel to be at their convention, I feel HavenCon is one thing because all of their panels are about like inclusivity and stuff like that. But it makes me have a sour taste in my mouth if I pitch a panel about inclusivity and specifically in gaming, but also in geek spaces. And the panels and the convention says, that's not a panel that we want to have. It makes me have a sour taste in my mouth about said convention because it's telling me as a queer person, as a woman, that they don't want me there in their space because it's not about like they don't have the room for it. They just don't want to host the panel because, and then I'll see the panels they do host and it's like, what? Like,
right.
And you're like, oh yeah, let's have another discussion about the history of the Joker and Batman. You're like, God damn. It's like, how many panels of those have you seen? All of them. And it's
seen any of them and I'm already tired of it.
Yeah, exactly. They're at every convention and it's like villainy and you're like, boring.
Yeah, I don't do panels. I just like walking around, and the only convention I do panels are at like RTX, because I like their shows and I want to see like behind the scenes of their shows and like what's coming next for their shows. And also they had Game Grumps the first year I went, so of course I went and saw the Game Grumps do dumb shit. So
Now I would watch I would attend a panel on queer coding in villains.
Yeah, exactly. But no, when you're just talking about like, there was a panel, it was basically just talking about the Batman's Rogues Gallery. Like it was just talking about the characters. I'm like, are we doing any analysis? You're just like, here they are.
I'm sorry, but you have to cite sources and use the word hegemony. It's the new panel rule.
Yeah, and I think we can do that in our. In our panel, in any of our YAS inclusivity and gaming panels, damn it, we will use the word hegemony and we will cite our sources. Our sources might be personal experience, but we will cite them.
And we might the only way that hegemony comes up is because we're mentioning it like now.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't matter.
We said it.
Tell mom we said the word.
We said it.
Okay, wrap up.
I wanted to say, because we're talking about so I missed kind of the part where I was like young 20s going to cons. And by the time I started going to cons, I had a kid in tow, like an older kid in tow. I say older, preteen, teen.
He wasn't in a baby.
I don't want it to sound like I'm sad about this. I feel like where this sentence is headed, but like I missed out on a lot of the harassment, right? And I'm not saying that it didn't exist and it doesn't exist right now, but for me personally, like when I've gone to conventions, especially some of the big ones like Comicpalooza, again, I go pretty locally to where I am, but they've been very diverse and very friendly, and I feel like there's at least an effort to make sure that these spaces are welcoming. But I know not all conventions are like this, and not everybody has positive experiences with them. So I was thinking, it being us, that we acknowledge that there have been lots of problematic history in conventions, and talk about how to tackle that going forward. As usual, we're going to be like, make a thing and do it the way, like, you do the thing that you want people to
there was something that started a few years ago, the cosplay is not consent. Both hashtag and
I have cosplay is not consent buttons, and I have I have a giant button that I wear when I'm like walking around, like walking to conventions, because especially at KatsuCon, there are photographers chilling outside of the convention taking and they're not like cosplay photographers, like they specifically are taking pictures of cosplayers because we're weird. And I don't like it, because like they're specifically doing it because they're like, oh, these people are weird, I'm gonna take photos of them. So I have a giant button that says like, this photo was taken without my consent, and I wear it so when they take pictures, people will know. And I will, if I can find where I got it, because I don't know if the person still sells it, I'll leave it in the link for the YouTube video if anybody wants to buy those buttons, because they're dope.
Yeah. So there's the cosplay is not consent, and so they've literally started putting up signs. It's like, you have to ask permission to talk to the cosplayers or anybody in cosplay, or take pictures with them, or touch them, or all that stuff.
Yeah, Comicpalooza has a big old sign, out front with the rules.
Because that was from somebody that does cosplay, and I hardly ever cosplay quote unquote sexy characters, but there is that a little bit of that being in a femme body and cosplaying femme characters, that people automatically assume the right to touch. Or I'm like, I don't mind if you ask to take a picture with me.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. You are not entitled to other people's presence, bodies, whatever. You are not entitled to it. You're just not. Yeah. So I don't mind if people are like, can we take a picture with you if I'm in like a dope cosplay? I'm like, yeah, And I'm like, if I'm like She-Hulk, I'm like, do you want me to pose like this? I'll ask them questions. Like, I'm like, do you want Jennifer Walters, lawyer extraordinaire, or do you want She-Hulk? Or I'm like, and I'll ask them like, please, I will present my boundaries, because I am
of an age, and I will say, don't touch me, we can stand this far apart, or I don't mind if you put your hand like on my shoulder, whatever it is. Don't go below the shoulders kind of stuff. Like I will tell them where I'm like, I will try not to touch you, and I'm like, whatever. Because I am of the because my parents taught me about boundaries. And because I can articulate that, but there are people who can't. And so having those signs up that say ask questions, don't just assume, don't take pictures of people without their permission. So having that clearly written, so if something does happen, you can go up and find somebody, either a volunteer or a convention employee, and go, this happened to me, this person did it, and they are very clearly disobeying the rules. They're very clearly not following this. Something needs to happen. Not just, not just a slap on the wrist. Either they get kicked out, like something has to happen to this person in which they are obviously, so it's not even, I'll say, if having rules of the convention posted is best, having them in every room, on every hall, on the convention floor, every 10 feet, that is the best. But if you can't have that, at the very least, have convention rules on your website. Codes of conduct on the website, easy to find, that people can reference if something happens.
Put them like on the back of everybody's
on the badges.
Badge. Yeah.
So I think that is the biggest thing that can be done, is having convention codes of conduct that are read and agreed upon by marginalized groups. Yeah. If it's a convention code of conduct that somebody from any marginalized group says, hey, we need to add something here or take something out, they need to be listened to.
Yeah. I definitely think like more, because geek space has just long been very white. And I mean, it hasn't really been
dominated and white appropriated.
Yeah. And so basically being very vocal and very active about opening the space up to inclusivity, I think is a big thing. I want to see more panels about that kind of stuff that we talk about, is basically how to diversify, what diversity brings to the table, and highlight those often unseen characters of fandoms and such that are not always highlighted because they're not part of white geek culture. I mean, as much as I
will say, and there are several conventions that have happened here in Austin that have been specifically for marginalized groups. Not just Haven Con for queer people, but there is there was going to be a convention last year for African and African American geekery here in Austin.
Chicago had Wakanda Con.
And then and then there's also been, I think it's Chicano Con.
Yeah.
It's something where it's actually for Latina geeks. Then it's obviously one of those things where if you aren't Latina, you can go. But the focus
is not made for you.
Yeah. Right. You have to go and expecting these like seeing Latina artists and talking about Latina culture and how you see that in geeky things and independent artists and stuff like that. Right. So having in marginalized groups, having cons that are centered around their thing is amazing. And having people who aren't those people, I'm doing this and meaning us because we're for the majority white, promoting those cons and going to them knowing that it's not for us, but still supporting them.
Yeah.
Not going in, giving our voices, but going, let me listen to you.
Let me buy your stuff.
Let me buy your stuff and let me hear what you have to say. Right. And I will sit here and listen to your words and go to a panel where you talk about Latina culture and Marvel comics. And I will go, okay, this is amazing. This is interesting. I respect you. I'm going to go buy some art now. Like, it's going to be one of those like things. I will also have to say my mom got her first shot. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but the mask that she wore says equality.
Equality.
Yeah, sorry.
I would say then the reverse is true. Like where we talk about like everybody use your social media platforms, use your friend spaces, to say when conventions are doing things right, and to support these conventions that are for or supportive of marginalized groups. When you see the reverse happening,
call them out.
Call them out.
Just like that whole thing with San Japan when the owner came out and was an asshole, and then he stepped down.
Yeah, Matsuri is trash.
Yes.
Don't think that it can be an uphill battle, especially for the really big conventions that that have been long established and have a lot of like money pouring into them from various places.
Mayoral support.
Don't ever feel like your voice isn't counting, because the more of us who point stuff out, who say stuff, who get in their faces, don't buy tickets, don't go. Like, boycotting is totally a thing you can do. Convince your friends to boycott. Like, it does change. It will, like, it takes time, but it's gonna, like, it makes changes.
Like I remember the first year that Boycott Anime Matsuri was happening, which was the year after I had went, and then I boycotted it. A friend of mine went, and I was like, so how'd it go? And she was like, oh, you could tell it was boycotted.
Oh.
Like, you could tell. Also, if anybody gives you a free pass to a convention that is problematic, don't take it, because that counts towards attendance. I know so many people who went to Anime Matsuri and they're like, oh, well, it didn't matter because I got a free ticket. And I was like, no, you're still counting towards their attendance. And if they see you there and you're counted towards the attendance, they'll be like, oh, people still want to go to this convention. And you're still giving them money. Like, if you get free stuff from the convention that's shitty, don't go still. Like, it doesn't matter.
People will be like, oh, but there's a vendor that I like that's there.
They'll be at other stuff. They'll be at other conventions.
Yeah, the vendor
will buy twice as much at the next convention. Yeah,
it's like it's Anime Matsuri. Like, all that shit pisses me off when people were like, oh, I didn't pay. And I was like, yeah, but you're still supporting them by going.
Right.
And another thing about like the vendors is that, like, if they don't make enough money to justify being at those cons, those problematic cons, they're not gonna go back.
Yeah.
So it is best to not attend.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then let everybody know that you're not attending and why. And convince your friends to also not go.
Yep. So we are at time. We're past time, but
it's fine. The point is, you can go to conventions. They are fun. They're great. You get to talk with people who share your interests, even when they're like really weird and nichey. And problematic culture is a thing. We're going to own that. And we're going to be like, we're going to use our voices. We're going to use our platforms to point that out and work for change.
And research conventions too. If you don't know the convention, look into it, and they could have stuff that's wrong. It's like research.
Virtual ones.
And if it's a good convention, and if it's a good convention, and you see problematic people in there, like Nazis, yell at them. Yell at the Nazis. Yell at the Nazis, yell at the organizers for not kicking out the Nazis in the first place. It is absolutely okay. And when you're the first person to do it, you're gonna have people behind you. They're just scared. They don't want to be the first person. Yeah. Trust me, there's people there.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, everybody knows, like, by and large, your fandom is going to be very supportive about not containing these individuals. If your fandom is very supportive of these individuals, get a new fandom. I say this as a Star Wars fan, but
so yes, this is it. Thank you guys for watching. So the last 2 OOCs haven't been uploaded to YouTube yet. That's on me. I have to edit.
That is weird.
Well, some of one of them I have to edit some stuff out, and same for that. And I have to. Haven's Rest will be up today or tomorrow for patrons.
Yay for patrons!
I promise. Oh, my arm.
Wholesome as cut. Okay, cut.
Okay, bye guys.